Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how I made this long sleeve crop top bikini with bottom two ways. If you're interested in how I achieve this look, please stay tuned. Alright guys, let's get started. I have 2 yards of this geometric print polyester spandex mix fabric and about 1 yard of this white stretch cotton polyester mix for the lining. I'll be using a zipper for the top and some elastic for the top and both bottoms. I have a long sleeve crop top to trace for the top, but you can use any form-fitting long sleeve you have, just crop to your desired length. I have a high-waisted and regular bikini bottom to trace for both options. And of course, some craft paper to trace on for my patterns. First, I take my crop top and fold it in half to the back. Then I trace the body of the shirt. Then I use my seam ripper and poke through to indicate the neckline and the armhole onto the craft paper. Then I fold the crop top to the front and trace the body of the shirt, and again I use my seam ripper and poke through to indicate the neckline and armhole onto the craft paper. I take the sleeve of the shirt and lay it flat, then trace around. I use the seam ripper and poke through to indicate the seam at the top of the armhole. After tracing, I cut the pattern pieces for the front and the back of the top. The back pattern will be cut on a fold, and the front pattern will be cut into 2 separate pieces with an added 1/2 inch seam allowance down the center. I also cut the pattern for the sleeve. I take the collar of the shirt and trace across for the length, which gives me 6 inches. I made the width 4 inches, and that's including the 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. This side will be cut on a fold. On the other side, I've added a 1/2 inch seam allowance for the hem. I take both of my bikini bottoms and fold them in half to the back and trace around onto the craft paper. Then I fold them in half to the front, tucking in the back out of the way, and trace around onto the craft paper. For the high-waisted pattern pieces, I add about 2 inches at the waistline, along with seam allowance for more coverage. I also make sure that the sides, the waistline, and the bottom of both pattern pieces match in the same length. I cut out the front and back patterns for the other bikini bottoms as well. After cutting all of my patterns onto fabric, I lay the back of the top front facing up. Then I line 1/2 of the front of the top front facing down and the front lining on top that I've pre-cut, and pin all 3 layers at the shoulder together. I do the same for the other side and sew across with a straight stitch. After sewing the shoulders together, I take the seam allowance and pin it to the back of the shirt and sew across on both sides. I fold the back of the neckline in half and pin at the center point. Then I pin the center point of the collar band and the neckline together, front facing in. I line the ends of the collar band and the ends of the neckline of the shirt together and pin. I stretch to fit as I sew across with a zigzag stitch. Here's a closer look after it's finished. Align the front of the top and the lining together and overlock stitch along the raw ends on both sides. Here's a closer look once that's finished. I grab my zipper, then I fold the collar band in half, overlapping a 1/2 inch at the collar seam, and pin at that point. I line the collar seams together and pin the other side of the collar band at the same point of the other side. I place the zipper at the seam point, then measure down 11 inches for the length of the opening and pin at that point. I sew across that point with my button attachment to shorten the zipper. That will stop the zipper from going further than that point. I take both sides of the front of the top and line them together front facing in. Starting from the same collar point, I measure down 11 inches and pin at that point. From that point on, I sew down with a straight stitch. After sewing that together, I open the top and place the top of the zipper front facing down at the same collar point and line the right straight edge of the zipper along with the left opening edge of the shirt and pin together. Then I sew down with a straight stitch along the edge. I unzip the zipper and line the left straight edge of the zipper with the right opening edge of the shirt. I make sure both sides of the collar seam and the zipper line up together, then I pin and sew down with a straight stitch. After sewing the zipper in place on both sides, I flip the zipper underneath so that the teeth are facing towards the center. Then I line the end of the shirt underneath the zipper teeth and pin in place. When I get to the bottom of the zipper, I flip it underneath and continue to pin the end of the shirt underneath the zipper on the other side. Then I sew down along the edge, across, then down the other side. Here's a closer look once that's finished. I take and fold the collar in half, starting at the top of the zipper and pin in place on both sides. Making sure the seam allowance along the collar is facing up, I fold the end of the collar band a ½ inch under and pin underneath along the collar seam. I move the pins to the outside of the collar seam one at a time, making sure to hold the collar in place. I sew across the seam with the zigzag stitch. Here's a closer look once that's finished. And the zipper zips up and down perfectly. I open up the armhole and line the center point of the sleeve and the shoulder seam together and pin. Then I continue pinning together on both sides. I sew across with a straight stitch. I attach the sleeves, then measure out elastic for both ends of each side of the top. I sew along the ends with an overlock stitch. After attaching the elastic, I pin the underarm seams together. Then I sew down from the top end of the sleeve to the bottom of the top with a zigzag stitch. Here's the top sewn up on both sides. I also hem the bottom of the top and the ends of the sleeves with a zigzag stitch. And now the top is complete. I have the front and the back of both bikini bottoms. I line the front and the back front facing in and sew the sides and the bottom together with the straight stitch. After sewing together, I cut the excess fabric off. I take the lining that I've pre-cut and sewn together and cut the excess fabric off the ends. I take the lining and turn it right side out, then line both pieces wrong sides facing in. I grab the elastic and pin the side seams together. I overlap the elastic a ½ inch over the seam and pin all 3 layers together. I continue to line and pin all 3 layers together along the raw end. At the end, I overlap the elastic a ½ inch on the other side of the seam, then cut and pin. Then I sew along the raw ends with the zigzag stitch. I repeat the same process with the other 2 openings. Here's a closer look of the bikini bottom after the elastic has been attached. For the last step, I fold the elastic over to the back of the lining, then sew around with a zigzag stitch on all 3 openings. Here's a closer look after that's finished. For the high waist bottoms, I repeat the exact same process as the other bikini bottoms. And now both bikini bottoms are complete. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.